Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Primrose. If you're new here, welcome. So today I am going to be talking about the things that I did to help me cope with the grief of losing my sister. I am still doing some of these things. It's difficult and it's different each and every day. But yeah, I remember when my sister passed away, I cried. I cried so many times. I cried randomly. I cried in random places. And I feel like it's really important when you lose someone or when you're battling grief to literally connect with your emotions, to be present. I feel like it's important not to suppress how you feel. I feel like some people, they might dive into work, they might turn into alcohol, they might turn into different things to use as a distraction. What I found during this time is crying is okay. I feel like it's important to cry until you can't cry anymore, and I think that's what I did. And it got to a point where I felt so numb that tears couldn't come out, and that was okay. Like, I wasn't hard on myself when that occurred. It just felt like I was not processing a different emotion, like numbness. So I definitely cried. I definitely had moments where I would take my son to school, and then after school I would sit in the car and I would just cry. I would just sit there and cry. And I felt like instead of holding back and trying to be strong, I felt like crying was my soul cleansing itself. I felt like crying was a way to show that I loved her so much. I still do, and crying is not a weakness, and with grief, people grieve differently. You have people that have lost someone, and on the day they probably don't even shed any tears, or they don't cry. They just go into planning mode. I think those people are called practical grievers, right? Those people that they hear that someone has passed away, they're automatically thinking, okay, what's next? What do we need to plan? And there's people like myself who are very, very emotional. I'm a very emotional person. Like, I'm very, very emotional. And it's okay as well to express yourselves in that way. If you've lost somebody, I would like to hear from you, and like how did you process it? Did you cry? Did you feel like you just needed to lash out, and how was that for you? And it's important to recognize that it will be different for everyone. My brothers, I always refer to them, during that process of us processing the loss of our sister. Sometimes I wouldn't see them cry. Sometimes I would see them cry, but either way, we both knew that we had a common denominator, that we lost somebody that we loved. So crying was definitely on my list. The other way that I used to cope during grief was I started walking. I used to I still do like going to the gym a lot. I'm really much into my fitness, and I feel like during that time going to the gym was not an option, but I knew that I needed to keep active, and I felt like going out for walks was an amazing thing that I could have done. And the thing is, my sister used to love going out for walks, and I hated walking, right? I still do, but I think in the early days of her passing, I walked a lot. And if November is such a cold month, and it was cold. And I remember I would just put on my jacket, put on my trainers, put on these thick socks, put on my gloves, and I would just walk. And I would walk in silence. I couldn't I couldn't stand music. I couldn't stand listening to any podcast when I'm walking. I just wanted total silence. And I live in the outskirts of London, so I'm surrounded by a lot of nature and trees, and I walked. I started talking to my sister. You know, I know she's dead, but I was talking to her, you know. When I was walking, I would talk to her. I would tell her how I was feeling. I would tell her, you know, where I'm at. I would tell her what I'm doing. I would tell her things that I felt like I didn't get the chance to say. And for me, I felt her presence, you know. If you've lost someone, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, when someone passes away, you almost feel their presence in a weird way. Like, since my sister passed away, right? I know this is going to sound very strange, but I have been seeing rainbows everywhere. Like, in my kitchen, when it's nice and sunny, if I open the curtains, I see like a line on the floor, like of a rainbow, and I know it's her. Or when I'm driving and then I see a rainbow in the sky, I know it's her. I don't know how to explain it, but I do. And I've heard this from a lot of people, that they feel like, you know, when their loved one passed away, they used to see birds or they used to see something and they knew that it was a sign. And I think for me, that's something that I feel like whenever I see, I just know that she's there with me. So yeah, so that was another thing. I walked a lot. The other thing that I did that I found helpful since grieving is journaling, writing. God, if you were to go through my iPhone, especially on the journals page, I journaled a lot when my sister passed away. I just didn't want to forget anything, you know, especially if it's a tragic death. You almost don't want to forget anything, and I felt like I needed to write things down for my own sanity. I journaled everything. I journaled everything that happened from when I found out when she passed away. I journaled what took place during the funeral. I journaled the funeral planning. I journaled the encounters that I had with people. I journaled my emotions. I journaled my fears. I journaled letters to her. You know, till now I still write letters to her. And if you've never done this, I think it's an amazing thing to do, writing letters. I used to hear this from people all the time, like, oh, it's so nice when you write things down and la da da da. But I'm telling you, now when I go back and I read some of the letters that I wrote to her in December or a month ago or 2 months ago, I'm like, wow, it's interesting to see where my mind was at the time. But yeah, I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of journaling, and that's something that I'm still doing now, because I feel like sometimes it's good to take what's up there and write it down. Otherwise, it's easy to get overwhelmed with your emotions. I found journaling a way to express myself. And you know, when you're journaling and you're writing something down, it doesn't have to make sense. You can even write it like as bullet points. Just taking it out of your head so that you're not overwhelmed. Another thing that I did was I prayed so much. I prayed, and I actually thought that God was tired of hearing from me. I was praying every single day, every minute of the day. I was just praying for comfort. I was praying God to give me understanding. I was praying for God to protect and watch over my sister's spirit. I was praying for God to help me navigate, praying for God to just make me understand what he needed me to do with this pain, you know, and because that's exactly what it is, this heartbreak. I prayed a lot, and I have one of my cousin sister, you know, Linda. She would send me like Bible verses. I'm definitely going to do a different separate videos. Comment below if you want to see a different video that of like the Bible verses that I found helpful during my time of grieving. You know, she would send me like different Bible verses each morning. Bless her, she was on she was on job. Each morning she would send me a Bible verse like, be strengthened, you know, God is with you, he hasn't forgotten you. And initially it was hard for me to read the Bible verses and actually understand. You know, sometimes you read something, you're like, oh, okay, God is saying, you know, blessed are those, you know, who are mourning because, you know, God will comfort them. Okay, the Bible is saying that, okay. And then it was not easy for me to read the verses and actually understand what God was trying to say to me. I think the more I prayed for strength and healing and understanding, the easier it eventually become for me to actually read the Bible verse and apply it to my pain. So that definitely helped. God definitely helped me. I feel like I'm getting to a point where I can actually talk about this grief and talk about my healing journey without not getting consumed with emotions, and that can only be God. And if you're a believer, you know, if you're going through something, if you're going through loss right now, or if you're just going through a really difficult time and you are praying for God's strength, God's healing, please continue, please don't stop, because if I tell you that the peace that I have right now, I can't explain it. I know he has plans. He has bigger plans. And then I keep listening to this gospel song. What the enemy meant for evil, God has turned it around. Turn it around. What the enemy meant for evil, God has turned it around for my good. That song was on repeat. That song was on repeat. When I first lost my sister, it was on repeat. So yeah, I definitely prayed a lot, and I'm gonna continue praying a lot. And the other thing that I did to process the grief and the loss of my sister is I went through those pictures. I went through the voice notes we've sent each other. I went through videos and pictures. I replayed them and replayed them. And I know this is not easy for everybody, because some people might feel like, looking at pictures and videos is just too upsetting. But I felt like I needed it. I was deep in it. If you're on my WhatsApp, if you're on my Instagram, I was posting back to back to back to back when she first passed away, because I was consuming my head with her. And in my phone, I've got a folder about her, about us and everything. Like I looked at her pictures. I listened to her voice notes, hearing my sister's voice over and over again. Sometimes when she's just talking about random stuff, you know, sometimes when she sent me random something like, oh, Prim, guess what? I would just laugh. It would just, you know, I needed it. You know, even till now, I still have pictures and voice notes, and I cannot lose my phone. I feel like I cannot lose my phone. You know, it really kept me going, and it has been keeping me going. And I feel like if you have pictures and videos of your loved ones, definitely cherish them, you know, cherish them, because yeah, those memories are precious. And yeah. And the other thing that I did and that I'm still doing is talking about my sister. I will not stop talking about her. And I think what I found very strange about people is when you have been bereaved by somebody, or someone has died in a very traumatic way, people don't know if they should ask questions about the person. So I said this in my last video, that I wanted people to ask me about my sister. like, how are you coping? How was she? Like, tell me a bit about her. I want to talk about her. Any chance that I get, I wanted to talk about her. And I felt like, I did that. I was able to do that. I thank God that I've got good friends. My friends, my friends have been so amazing, my cousins have been so amazing, during this time. I have friends, or I have a friend that also lost her sibling, her brother. I have a friend who also lost, her sibling as well. And I would just pick up the phone, right? And call one of my friends. For example, I'll call one of my friend Lucy. She's like my therapist, right? There was times that I would just call her and I'd be like, friend, I'm not okay. And she would just be like, what's wrong? And I'd be like, I'm not okay. I miss her. I don't know. And then she would just encourage me. And sometimes she would just listen on the phone. And I think when you're grieving, that's all you want. You just want someone to listen. And the person doesn't really have to have the answers, but just knowing that there's people that there's someone that I can talk to, that was enough for me, And, sometimes she would just like say, do you know what, friend, let's pray. And she would just pray for me. And I would just be on the phone, like just sobbing, just crying. And she would just pray for me, like, friend, I'm here. We're going to get through this together, And then I'll speak to my other friend who's also lost, her mom. She's lost her brother. She's really dealt with loss. And, sometimes she would just be on the phone. She'll be like, I get how you feel. And, she'll be like, I promise you're going to get through this, And I have my other friend that will also just be on the phone, Sometimes we don't have to talk. One of my friends, she's literally like me. We can just be on the phone and not say anything to each other. And it's been really good, having people that can actually ask you about your loss and you can tell that they genuinely want to know. And that's been very, very important. And I had one of my cousins, she came all the way. She lives like 4 or 5 hours away. She drove all the way to come and see me, come and spend the weekend with me. Just, and when people love you, they know that you're not okay. And, for me, these people will never understand what they did, how much it helped, having to travel 4 or 5 hours away just to come and to make sure I'm okay. Like, it means so much. Or, just people checking in, because I feel like once the funeral is done, right, people move on. The world moves on. It has to. It's normal. It has to. But I think when you're grieving really starts after the funeral, and that's when you need a community. And the other thing that I had to do, this was a non-negotiable. I had to do this. I had to get into therapy. I am still into therapy. I am getting therapy for bereavement support. And I think it's important. If you can get into it quick, do it, It's been 6 months, but I've been in therapy, talking about my sister, talking about the grief, talking about the different stages of grief. It's helped. And I feel like I wouldn't have been able to be where I am today if I had not seek help, basically. So as much as I'm praying, as much as I'm connecting with my friends, as much as I'm showing up for myself, it was important for me to get professional help, and I did that, and I've been doing that, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm in therapy. I think therapy is one of the amazing things you could ever give yourself, and not because of grief, but just because, right? You'll be very surprised how many things you will uncover about yourself once you start therapy. So therapy has really helped. It's really helped to recognize that my emotions will change, they will fluctuate. and there is no right or wrong way to grieving. But yeah, so I've been doing okay. You know, it's as much as my sister is no longer here, I just thank God that he's given me, you know, other sisters, you know, that I have, you know, that I've always had anyway, to rely on. And also there's been enormous support from my social media. I think there was a girl I was talking to before, she's on my Instagram, and I remember when my sister initially passed away, this girl was messaging me. I don't think we've ever met, but if you're watching this video, hi, how are you, by the way? But she was messaging me back to back, and if I remember correctly, she shared a story that she had lost her siblings, 2 of them, in a space of 2 months or 3 months, I'm not sure. And I remember when she said that, and I was thinking, how can you ever get over that, you know? But yeah, it's stories like that that really strengthened me, you know. I remember I had so many questions when I was writing to her, and she just encouraged me. I was very encouraged. So yeah, grief has a very funny way of showing itself. The support has been there, but I've also showed up for myself. I have been present with my emotions. I have been true to myself. I have sat in my pain. I have not tried to run away from it. I have not tried to suppress it, you know. And I think that's the worst thing you could ever do when you're grieving. Isolating yourself, not talking to people, or not eating, or, you know, just shutting yourself from the world. Initially, yeah, that will happen. But I think it's important that you find yourself, because those people that you've lost, they will not want that for you, you know. And if you're in a space where you're grieving right now, please take care of yourself, you know. Take one day at a time, you know. Just write something down, just go out for a walk. And I also found that, like, after a while, I had to now start making steps to reaching out to people. You know, I didn't end up just waiting for people to check in on me just because I lost someone. I felt like I gave myself a push to say, actually, let me start reaching out to people as well, and checking in, and, you know, and making connections again, you know, so that I don't just shut myself away from the world. So yeah, that's really and truly how I've been dealing with grief, and I'm healing, you know, I'm learning. And this is one of the reasons why I have started, you know, this channel, just to share that there is no easy way of grieving, and especially losing a sibling. It can become very, very lonely, very isolating. It's easy for someone to get depressed, you know, during this time. But it's also important to remember that, you know, what I said before, they wouldn't want you to be like that. So there is help there if you're struggling, you know, right now with grief, or if you're struggling with your emotions, or, you know, with anything. Just know that there's help out there. Just know that there's people that genuinely care and seek for help. You know, just reach out, drop a text to someone, and yeah, you are not alone in anything, you know. But yeah, so I just thought I'd share. If you liked this video, guys, if you're enjoying this sit down chit chat talk videos, please like this video, comment, share, subscribe. I would really want to know, what have you been doing, or what have you done before in the past when you were grieving? How did you process your grief? And yeah, I would like you to comment below, share this video, you know, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you guys in my next video. God bless you. Take care. Bye.